The Freedom of Information release covers over 1 million documents, detailing experiments and operations performed by the CIA over the last 50 years. Something of a secret Cold War that happened under the noses of the civilian population. Much of what we're about to show you is not only disturbing, but completely unbelievable.
Case number 42, Mr. Twister, Phenomenon, Risk Level 2, Midwestern United States, pending locality confirmation. Background. We learned of the potential existence of this anomaly through monitoring of schizophrenia support forums on .com. Multiple users inquired to the existence of a children's TV show aired between the years of 19 and 19, as the memory of the program seemed warped by delusion or altogether incorrect. While most insisted such a program never existed and that a cursory search would reveal this information, a select few users insisted that they had seen it as well. These posts, and especially the replies to said posts, were considered trolling and deemed inadmissible to the rules of the forum and were thus removed outright. When the users continued to post about the television program, they were banned from the forum altogether. Since many anomalies and the effects thereof are mistaken for mental health issues, all potentially anomalous subject matter posted to public mental health forums and private mental health records are automatically processed by the Anubis 2.0 electronic intelligence sniffing and preliminary auditing utilities. Through Anubis's initial findings, it was learned that all members who claimed they had seen or heard of the children's TV program Mr. Twister were raised in the Midwestern United States, and that all members who claimed to have seen the show had one or more family members killed or otherwise lost due to a tornado. In all cases, the affected members have no record of schizophrenia symptoms before said tornado event, which is conventionally improbable. Anubis flagged Mr. Twister's potential for being an anomaly as low priority, due to the small sample size and small number of casualties. However, after a further 2 days of subroutine investigation, Anubis uncovered more claims about the TV show documented in forums for other types of mental illness, as well as the records of mental hospitals throughout the Midwest, and a small number of documents from insurance investigations conducted in the aftermath of destructive tornadoes. The case's designation was upgraded to medium priority with consideration to the new breadth of data and the potential danger it suggested. The pioneering investigation was led by Dr. in 2000. With such a wide focus, the investigation was passed between several research teams over the next years, and the case was treated as a largely safe project, which could be given to teams that were overworked or needed time away from the harrowing and potentially traumatizing nature of other active cases. While some progress was made by each research team, it wasn't until 2000 that a potential connection was discovered between this phenomenon and the children and related entities. Upon this discovery, the lead researcher at the time, Dr. immediately reported this to control, and the case was treated with much more urgency. More teams were deployed to investigate Mr. Twister, and most especially whether or not the phenomenon was still occurring. Despite the extra resources devoted, little progress was made, and a stopgap solution was put in place. This solution was essentially a broadcast filter applied to all new television or television signal-capable electronics made domestically or imported. This process was implemented secretly during the already-in-progress switch from analog to digital television signals. Using the new technology and the signal translators equipped to outdated technology, all incoming broadcasts were scanned for any signs of subdimensional interference typical of the For the Children organization. The broadcast filters, despite being spread throughout the country, have only intercepted the phenomenon once. This event occurred on 2000 on the television set belonging to one of Oklahoma. From studying the intercepted signal, it is clear that the broadcast was not meant for or her children, but was instead a direct message to the AORD. Since then, no more signals have been captured. It's impossible to say whether or not this means the phenomenon no longer occurs, or if it has simply changed its method of distribution. Furthermore, the effects of climate change have increased the number and power of tornadoes in the Midwestern United States, and so it would be difficult to discover more instances of the Mr. Twister broadcast, as doing so through weather data would require knowing exactly how much carbon is released into the atmosphere at any given time, as well as fully understanding the holistic impacts of specific carbon levels on the weather system. Since this is the case, the only current operation in regards to this case is the continued scraping of data from mental health hospitals, forums, and other sources. Evidence Log 1-1 / schizophrenia support forum post by username 122000. Does the kids' TV show Mr. Twister exist? The other day I smelt burnt pumpkin, and that triggered a memory of a very strange TV show I saw when I was a kid. The problem is, every time I think about the show, the content of it just seems way too fucked up for it to be a real thing. Like, not just fucked up for a kid's show in the 90s, like actually fucked up. I can't tell if this was a real show and my brain fucked up my memory of it, or if it was actually like that. Or if the show isn't even a real thing and my entire memory of it is a delusion. I can't find anything about it anywhere on the internet, but I know a lot of things fall through the cracks, especially with how search engines work now. The show itself was all about this puppet tornado named Mr. Twister, and it was sort of like Blue's Clues, except you would never solve the mystery, if that makes any sense. Also, there was always like a moral lesson, but it wasn't always good. I distinctly remember watching an episode where the moral of the story was that sometimes it's best to give up. It had a theme song with the sounds of wind that practically drowned out the music, and Mr. Twister would say, "Round and round and round we go." This is seriously fucking me up, so if any of this sounds familiar to anyone, please let me know. Otherwise I have to get my meds adjusted. To be honest, it really seems like it can't be a real show. Both of my parents died in a tornado when I was, so it feels like this has to just be a delusion. That said, the memories are just so clear, so I don't know. Research Log 1-1. Dr. On arriving to the city, the research team, largely comprised of field officers, intercepted Mr. on his way to the gas station. Mr. was then taken to another location where we interrogated him about his posts on the forum. Mr. recalled his memories of the show in greater detail. Despite his obsession with the show and collecting and sharing any details he could find, Mr.'s memory and focus seemed deeply impaired by years of drug abuse, alcoholism, and struggles with schizophrenia. He described the main character, Mr. Twister, as a puppet that appeared to be made out of twisted gray, black, and white felt or cotton. He had a large mouth and two spiraling eyes that continuously spun whenever he was on screen. Furthermore, the puppet would occasionally walk over a set piece, destroying it, usually as a joke, accompanied by the laughter of children, and pieces of whatever it was he destroyed could be seen moving around the puppet for the rest of the scene. Mr. stressed that this all appeared to be a practical effect of some sort and not done in stop motion. He also remembered the design of a few auxiliary puppets. One was a farmer, whose name he couldn't remember, with a straw hat and a permanent frown. This character served as the straight man for the show, and was often angry at Mr. Twister for making everything disorganized. Mr. also stated that the farmer occasionally looked very realistic and very distressed, usually after Mr. Twister had done or said something particularly unpleasant. Next was a cow named Lily, who was Mr. Twister's best friend and biggest fan. She was black and white, with eyes that looked in different directions. Apparently she would jump into the wind surrounding Mr. Twister on purpose because she liked the feeling of swirling through the air. Mr. remembered this character as a comically stupid archetype. However, he stated that on reflection, Lily's humorous obliviousness to uncomfortable and demeaning situations seemed somewhat unsettling and possibly sexual. Another puppet related to us in his testimony was one called Big Mama, with a wide smile who lived in a hole deep underground. He says the puppet was probably black and or red, but he doesn't remember which, or if it was both, or alternating between the two. Mr.'s memory of Big Mama was notably spottier than most of his other descriptions, and several times his focus shifted onto something else before we reminded him to return to his account. Mr. could not relate the full contents of an entire episode, but he insists that each episode had a very simple mystery, such as, "Where is Lily's bell?" or "Who stole the cookies?" Over the course of the show, Mr. Twister would collect clues, and the clues would invariably lead to either a dead end or the confirmation that they will never find the missing object/person/answer. After relinquishing Mr. to undergo MK-15 procedures, we searched his home and collected any potential information that may lead to further evidence of Mr. Twister. Upon our return to our established field base, we analyzed his computer and found he was in several private conversations with others who claimed to have seen the show when they were children. One such person, username Roundabout, claims to have recorded a videotape of the show during his own childhood. However, Roundabout demanded unreasonable assurances that Mr. was not involved with a government organization or a global secret society. Mr. was ultimately unable to convince Roundabout to send him a copy of the videotape, and preliminary digital forensics have led us to believe Roundabout was using a number of interlaced proxies and tunnels. We have submitted a request to access restricted logs to ascertain Roundabout's identity and location. Research Log 1-2, Dr. Mr. childhood home in Kansas was destroyed by an EF4 tornado and was never rebuilt, making any investigation in that vein impossible. Furthermore, sensor readings around the house's original location show no unusual signals or fields that would equate to a targeted broadcast of an anomalous nature. Of course, it's possible the broadcast was indeed targeted at Mr.'s house, but no residual influence was left after so many years. However, with no confirming or disqualifying evidence, we are left in the dark. Local government records have been improperly kept due to a lack of incentive and necessity. Mr.'s father has a death certificate on file here, but his mother does not. There was a report in the local newspaper at the time of the tornado describing both Mr.'s parents dying in the disaster, so it's fair to assume this is merely a failure in record-keeping and not an attempt at cover-up. Surprisingly, the tornado that killed Mr. and Mrs. only did minor damage to the surrounding houses. That said, it did cause further deaths and property damage in a neighboring town. The pattern of the tornado is conventional, as is the seemingly random nature of its destruction. At least at the base meteorological level, there is nothing strange about the tornado or its path. Though this is true, I believe this isn't a coincidence. Research Log 1-5, Dr. Arrived in Oklahoma and gained entry to the long-term care facility under false pretenses. On entry, we sought out Mrs. and set up a private meeting with her through the guides of experimental care. Though there were some stumbling blocks in being granted a private meeting with a patient prone to extreme violence, we did eventually secure a staging area. Mrs. was initially uncooperative, but on inquiring into her replies to Mr.'s posts and later messages, she became excitable and enthusiastic. Unfortunately, her behavior was too erratic and indiscreet, so we had to apply tranquilization and cooperation drugs to her all the same. Her memory of the television program is even less complete than Mr. and she could only confirm the vague description of the different puppets, but not their names nor the specific contents of any particular episode. She did, however, recall a particular scene wherein Mr. Twister repeatedly said the word spin over a shifting red background. Strangely, Mrs. expressed favorability towards the show and insisted that, though difficult to deal with, the show's effects were ultimately a good thing. When asked about the tornado, Mrs. became more calm and collected than during any other period of the interrogation. She expressed neither positive or negative feelings about her family's death, being orphaned, or the trauma of witnessing said event. She did, however, say it felt good to be near such incredible power, and further added that she has enjoyed windy days ever since. It's difficult to say whether or not Mrs.'s attitude about the show is more affected by exposure to the anomaly or the resulting mental illness. It's also difficult to say whether or not Mrs. would have been mentally ill without the influence of Mr. Twister. I suggest that Mrs. may have had more exposure than the other victims we've seen so far, and that this outlook, as well as her violent tendencies, may be a result of an IH or CH effect. This is just conjecture, of course, but considering this case will be handed off next week, this will be our final conclusion until a more scientifically viable answer becomes available. Research Log 1-1. Dr. Having reviewed the previous team's work, we decided to follow up on the potential recordings belonging to the username Roundabout. Through the use of more contemporary cyber warfare frameworks, we were able to learn the target's whereabouts at the time of the last sent message to Mr. Following up on this, we found an apartment that was rented to a Mr. at the time of the message. The likelihood that Mr. was Roundabout was to such a degree that we felt it was warranted to abduct Mr. from his new dwelling. And on arrival, though, we found that Mr. had been dead for around 3 days. Luckily, it seems we were the first ones to discover him, and there are no signs of anyone tampering with the scene. This implies that Mr. Death is likely not connected to a foreign adversary and is likely just a coincidence. Nearly all of Mr.'s belongings were confiscated as evidence, including a large number of VHS tapes, all of which are labeled in some sort of symbol code. We'll have to set up a temporary facility to test the tapes, as there's every chance watching an episode of Mr. Twister will cause a tornado, or at very least instill mental health issues in the watcher. While we wait to be approved for a field testing facility and a provision of research subjects, we'll be collecting police reports and first responder testimonies through the interdepartmental database. Hopefully there will be some clue as to the method or motive, if applicable, of this anomaly. Research Log 1-2. Dr. While many of the police reports pertaining to the deaths of subject-adjacent persons have been coincidentally lost or destroyed, there are still a number of accounts still available. While most of these surviving documents describe the scene as typical for a tornado incident, it is also the case that each of these documents make mention of the large spread of blood and viscera around the scene. In particular was an interview log between a police counselor and an arriving officer, which is also the most detailed account we have found. It describes the officer arriving at the destroyed house of subject whose parents, brother, and sister were killed in the tornado. The officer described the house as shelled out like a pumpkin, with the interior in complete disarray. Furthermore, the officer described the scene as grisly, and one of the most horrible things I've ever seen, saying that there were pieces of the victims spread through the remains of the building's structure. The various parts of the victims were apparently so mixed that it was difficult for the coroners to get all of the limbs and organs into their proper places. The officer further states that it is very likely the coroner didn't bother doing such a thing. Despite the nature of the scene, in all cases the subject was the only survivor and seems to have been spared miraculously. However, both the visceral nature of the deaths and the coincidental survival of the subjects are quite common for tornadoes, and there's no evidence that they are connected or unusual, apart from the circumstantial evidence that each of them may have seen a non-existent children's show. I'm very eager to begin the analysis of the videotapes. Research Log 1-3. Dr. We finally uncovered video footage of one of the tornadoes, and we began research of the footage with great expectations, as, at least going by the time codes that came with the file, the video should capture the moment the tornado hits one of the victims' houses. In an abundance of caution, we had a research subject watch it in our stead. About 6 seconds before the tornado made direct contact with the victim's house, the video footage of the tornado became corrupted. It continued to be corrupted until some time after the tornado moved through the victim's house. By studying the speed of the funnel's movement before and after the corruption, it is estimated that the footage returns roughly 6 seconds after the tornado moves past the area. In essence, the video cuts out 6 seconds before the tornado hits, and returns 6 seconds after it ends. I don't believe this is a coincidence. Apart from the corruption, which initial analysis is no different from normal broadcast interference, and was recorded being present in the initial recording, there's also a very slight shift in the color balance of the footage after the static dissipates. There is no evidence at this time that the footage contains an IH or CH, either dangerous or innocuous. All in all, there isn't anything strange about the footage or the event it captures other than the coincidental nature of the obfuscating corruption. More tests are being run on the footage automatically, but for now it's reasonable to assume it's a dead end. Research Diary 1-25. Dr. I just found out at the airport that they've discovered a recording of Mr. Twister amongst the tapes taken from Mr. home. Sadly, I'll be reassigned starting tomorrow, so I won't get to see it. Or rather, its description. If you're reading this, and assuming this case doesn't take a sudden turn for the worse and gain a few security clearance levels, I would appreciate it if you could keep me updated on any progress you make. This case is a huge pain in the ass, but it's exactly the kind of mystery that's kept me in the AORD all this time. Naturally, if it would break any regulations to send me information about the tape or any additional evidence you might find, just pretend like I didn't bring it up. I know how these things go, and if this rabbit hole ends up being above my security level, I don't even want to know. Research log 1-1. Dr. Research subject male, years old. After a full month, there are no signs that the subject has been affected by his viewing of the tape in any way. Apart from thinking it was a little unsettling for a kids' show, there was no emotional reaction during the viewing. Even then, the subject described the show as about on the level for modern cartoons. Furthermore, the subject described himself as quite knowledgeable about cartoons, as he was allowed to watch cable. It's possible that more than one episode has to be seen in order for the anomaly to activate, though this remains to be seen. Any further testing we can do on the current tape can only be done very slowly, as the safety protocols demand that the entire research team be ready to react to an actual tornado at a moment's notice. Progress will likely speed up if and when we get the all-clear to study the tape uninhibited. Considering that the show only appeared to children and only for about years with no occurrences after 2000, it is likely that the effects of the anomaly will only apply to children, and even then it's quite likely that the anomaly no longer carries a viable effect, since it hasn't done so for years as far as we can tell. Research log 1-2. Dr. After careful study, we found something very unusual about the recording. Despite every single person who views it thinking it's a children's puppet show, it is in actuality a different series of images every single time it's played. What's more, according to the computer analysis, the images and sounds most often depict human beings being brutalized or torn apart, screaming in pain, crying, retching, groaning, etc. There is no clear answer as to how this separation of perception and objective image is coming about, but we've ruled out the idea that it is simply interacting with the AI in a strange way. Even through human observation of the data structures of the recording, it does indeed change every time it's viewed. Furthermore, when a single frame is replicated from the binary form of the video file, it does indeed depict something other than the Mr. Twister show, normally graphically violent imagery as previously stated. We've separated potential avenues of research into the following queries. What makes the objective video file appear as a children's TV show, and how? What makes the objective video file change between viewings, and how? What connection do these videos, both objective and subjective, have with the meteorological system of the Midwest? Given that we only have access to one videotape, and that it is merely a recording, it seems very unlikely we'll be able to determine the origin of the original broadcast. However, if we can answer the above questions, there may be some clue as to where we should look for a belligerent force in regards to the Mr. Twister case. Research log 1-7. Dr. The hypothesis is confirmed. Recording the screen with a separate camera will indeed capture the objective video and audio. However, in learning this, we have found that it is nearly impossible to capture the subjective iteration, or performance, of the Mr. Twister show. So far, the only effective method of viewing the Mr. Twister show is by watching the original video file, or a copy of it. Furthermore, all copies of the original recording act in exactly the same way as the original, including the objective and ever-changing data of the file and the subjective performance of the same episode of Mr. Twister. Luckily, neither the original nor any of the copies have caused a tornado, at least not directly or measurably. I'm confident in saying, considering the continued anomalous properties of the recording, that the effect will only work on children. If it was possible for it to work on adults, we would know by now, and it can be fairly assumed that all anomalous properties of the video would have faded if the original phenomenon no longer had any effect. Without permission to test the recording on children, though, we'll have no way of confirming this postulation. The research team are largely against this avenue of research, however. I have already submitted a special request to control. Hopefully, calmer heads will prevail. Audio log 1-1-1. Mr. Twister opening. Warning. Do not expose this file to anyone under the age of 18 in any form. While it is assumed to be safe for partial exposure, it remains untested.
Round and round we go. Where'd we end up? It's the Mr. Twister Show.
Audio log 1-2-1. Mr. Twister opening. Recording 1. Audio log 1-1-5. Mr. Twister talks to Lily.
Well, hi there, Lily. How are you today?
I'm good. But I'd be a lot better if you picked me up and whipped me around.
You got it, Lily.
Audio log 1-2-5. Mr. Twister talks to Lily. Recording 1. Audio log 1-1-20. Mr. Twister doesn't find the dog.
It looks like the dog's footprints end here next to the road.
Maybe somebody picked her up in the car.
Tarnation, how are we supposed to find the dog now?
We can't. No matter how hard we try, we'll never be able to find her.
Oh well.
I don't like that at all.
It's okay. Remember what we learned today. Everything goes away eventually.
Audio log 1-2-20. Mr. Twister doesn't find the dog. Recording 1. Two. Doctor from at control. Subject. Request denied. Although we do agree that it is likely that the anomaly is only effective when used on children, we cannot allow human experimentation on American minors. Furthermore, using foreign children could potentially cause unwanted attention for the agency. You'll have to leave it a mystery until such a time as the phenomenon comes out of its dormant state. Research Diary 1-1. Doctor, I've been very excited to get my hands on this case for a while. I've heard a lot about it, through the proper channels, of course, over the years, and I've always wanted to see what I could add. My first idea seems to be right on the mark as well, since there are numerous victims of the anomaly that either have or have developed paranoid schizophrenia. It only makes sense that most of them would not want to post about the show on the internet. So, I've put Anubis to work looking through the online footprints of any patients that fit the bill, i.e. lost family members in a tornado in the Midwest. It's already coming up with a lot of potential avenues, and it seems as if there may be quite a lot more victims of this phenomenon than originally estimated. Still, even after widening the time frame, there doesn't seem to be any viable subjects past 2000 that we could have missed. That said, there's no guarantee there aren't any. It's possible Mr. Twister upgraded to Mr. Hurricane or Mr. Earthquake. Anyway, there's no way to know, but at least as far as Twisters go, it seems to have fizzled out. Most promising amongst the potential leads is a Mr. who, on top of checking all the boxes for a Twister victim, is also an obsessive VHS collector. Most especially home recordings, apparently. Not much of an online footprint apart from buying every tape she could get her hands on. Seems like a jackpot to me, but we'll see. Research Diary 1-2. Doctor, we've managed to retrieve the belongings of the late. As expected, it does appear to contain several episodes of Mr. Twister, all of which have labeled titles. They'd been inherited by her brother, Mr. Her brother says that he tried to watch them once, but it triggered unpleasant memories of his sister's descent, as he called it. If true, it's further proof that it will not affect adults. Not that we needed any more proof of that. He said he didn't let his children watch the tapes, but he couldn't be sure they didn't do so behind his back, and so we can't determine whether or not the phenomenon is still in effect, or if it works at all with recordings rather than the original broadcasts. Considering this represents the first and only lead in this case in years, it's definitely a good thing a tornado didn't land on his house, regardless of whether or not the children watched Mr. Twister. If that were the case, we might be able to assume that the phenomenon is still in effect, if any of the tapes survived, but we wouldn't be able to learn much more about it as a whole. I'm so glad to be on this case. I was worried I'd get stuck chasing after the keepers of the again, and I'm not sure my psyche would be able to handle another round of getting lost in one-bedroom apartments. Research Diary 1-24. Doctor, after reviewing half of the available tapes, I'm starting to think this case may be more than a simple phenomenon. The team is split on this, but it seems to me that the show may be addressing us directly. It may just be a coincidence, but having worked for the AORD for as long as I have, I never take that for granted. Even though these recordings date back to and don't appear to have been doctored in any way. And even though they match the descriptions found in Miss' personal journals, I can't help but think that the show is directing statements directly at the research team. It's not very specific, which could imply that whoever made the show or manifested it knew that the AORD or some other organization would investigate it. That said, having seen it myself now, I think it's specifically for us. I think the show knows we're watching, and I think it knew we'd be watching years ago. I've attached a series of clips to this diary as well as an addendum to the official research logs. If you listen to it, you should see what I mean. Audio log 1-2, Mr. Twister, Episode 1, Part 2.
Hi, kids. Welcome to the first episode of my new show. It's good to see you again.
Audio log 2-5, Mr. Twister, Episode 2, Part 5.
What do you want to be when you grow up, Mr. Twister?
I want to keep being a tornado. I'll spin and grow and grow. What about you, Lily?
I want to be a doctor.
A doctor? Do you want to be a medical doctor? Or do you want to be the kind of doctor that doesn't help anyone?
I just want to wear a lab coat. They make it look so cool.
If you say so.
Audio log 3-10, Mr. Twister, Episode 3, Part 10.
What's wrong, Mr. Twister? Finally get tired of messing everything up?
No. I'm just worried our friends are getting tired of watching.
What? Watching what? The show?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not like they have much choice.
Everybody has a choice. Isn't that right, kids?
2. At control. From Doctor. Subject. Immediate upgrade for Mr. Twister case. It's the made Mr. Twister. Research diary 1-35. Doctor. We're all exhausted from the preparations and countermeasures. It doesn't help that we all have to be quarantined until Control can send someone to tell us whether or not we're fucked. I don't know how much exposure we've had, but it has to be a lot. Of course, there's no guarantee there will be any negative effects from just watching the show, but there's every reason to believe there will be. I wish I'd considered it sooner. There were too many coincidences. Throughout the whole case, too, even before I was signed on. But it was too long of a time period. I was just starting to notice that the show was referring to us, and by then it was too late. I'd already watched 7 episodes. Then Big Mama showed up. As soon as I saw that fucking puppet, it all came together. It's a s***er named Big Mama. Of course it has to do with... I wonder if they'll end up watching the rest of the episode, or if it'll all end up in the protectorate system. Even now I want to figure it out, but there's no point. There's nothing to figure out about we already know what she is and what she does. The whole thing was probably just her way of wasting our time. Or at least I hope that's what it was. If there's something more to all this, that would mean whatever it was meant to do is already done and dusted. If the show is being broadcast to children in order to sacrifice their parents or their minds, then whatever the end goal was must have already been met nearly years ago. And here we are watching a fucking puppet show. Christ. I hope it's just fucking with us. 2. The National Association of Broadcasters. From the Federal Communications Commission. Subject. Digital Signal Switch. By order of the United States government under the Digital Transition and Public Safety Act, for the well-being and protection of the American public from potentially dangerous high-power analog signals, all terrestrial television broadcasts are to be transitioned to a digital broadcast by February 17, 2009. Furthermore, broadcast channels 52 to 69 will be reallocated for government use, and are not to be used for any reason, commercial or private, by any organization outside of the United States government. To assist with the funding and implementation of this transition, we have formed a new and temporary organization, the American Over-Air Renovation Distribution. Any further questions or concerns will be fielded by their office, and any attempt to contact the FCC about the digital transition will be redirected accordingly. 2. At control. From CO of Project Soap Opera. Subject. Transmission intercepted. Earlier today, at hours Central Standard Time, an iteration of the anomalous broadcast was intercepted on a single digital tuner belonging to the household of Kansas. An apprehension order has already been sent to the local authorities to ensure that there was no exposure or unforeseen factors. However, judging from the initial study of the broadcast, titled Mr. Twister Season Finale, it appears likely that this broadcast is intended for us and not the civilian population. Assuming it passes IH protocols 1 through 6, we will be detailing a full and comprehensive description of the broadcast contents as well as an initial analysis as soon as it's deemed safe to do so. Audio log supplemental. Mr. Twister Season Finale. Warning. Ensure no one under the age of 13 is exposed to this recording in any form. Addendum. This recording has been altered to remove dangerous IH elements unsuitable for human study. Addendum. This recording has been altered to ensure safety of public release. While unlikely, it is possible the relative safety of exposure may change over time or at random intervals. Caution and moderation is strongly advised.
Round and round we go. Where we'll end up? It's the Mr. Twister Show. It's so nice to see all my old friends again. Hello, Lily.
Hello, Mr. Twister.
Hello, Farmer Ben.
Yeah.
And hello to you. It's so nice to see all my old friends again.
Mr. Twister, look! Somebody's gone missing!
Oh my. I don't think I've ever seen that person before.
Me neither.
But this poster says she's very, very important. How could it be that none of us remember her? I don't know.
Me neither.
What about you? Do any of you smart folks in the laboratories and boardrooms know? No? Well, I guess we better start looking for clues.
What's this red thing?
That's called a placenta.
Good God.
Placenta? What's that?
That's a special organ that mothers make to take care of babies before they're born. Can you spell placenta? Placenta.
Ooh, great job!
Why is this here?
Maybe Big Mama will know. She's a mother after all. She's got millions of children all around the world. Big Mama, come down from your web. We need help from you and your funnel again.
Hello again. Well, this is the end of the trail.
But where's the girl?
I don't know. Do you see any clues here? No? Nothing out of the ordinary? Take your time.
Is there actually anything to find?
Good question, Farmer Ben. And I'm afraid the answer is not anymore. Even at the end of the trail, there's nothing left to find. No girl, no clues, no answers.
Oh, jeez. Looks like we screwed it up again.
Aw, don't worry, Lily. It's not your fault. That's just how it is in life. Sometimes you're just too late. And there's nothing left to be done.
Well done.
It's not your fault either, friend. Not really. How could you have seen what is hidden? How could you know what's already forgotten? How can you stop what's already come to pass?
Wait, I'm a puppet?
There is no mystery because there are no clues. There is no way forward because there is no path. Everything's spread apart needlessly and incoherently, spiraling downwards towards oblivion. And even then, oblivion never comes. There's just more spiral.
How did I forget? What is this place? Oh no. No.
All we can do is spin. 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 Spin.
Please,
Spin.
please just let me die.
Spin.
2. General reception at the Directorate. From Vet Control. Subject: Case Risk Assessment. From close study of the intercepted broadcast, we can assume that the has accomplished some step towards one of its goals. Whether or not that goal is the manifestation of a physical form, as it was, or if it's something else, is impossible to say. Facial recognition on the missing girl's face came up with absolutely nothing. Either that girl doesn't exist, or they did something to erase her from history. Vocal analysis, however, did find a significant similarity between the Farmer Ben puppet and the late Dr. who was killed in action on another case. There's still no causal link to be found between the broadcast and the tornadoes. Our best guess is that the used the broadcast, or perhaps the resulting field, from causing in the children to affect the probability of a storm, coincidentally killing the subject's family and leaving them alive. This is consistent with the currently understood abilities and modus operandi. Of course, this is just conjecture, but our analysis deems it to be quite likely the case. As far as risk goes, it's just like anything else with or her children. There's no real way to understand how they do what they do, and thus there's no current way to prevent it. At the very least, it's been demonstrated that the specific signal that causes the Mr. Twister phenomenon can be filtered out. However, there's no reason to believe that another similar signal can't be implemented to work on modern televisions or the internet. I can say that this case does appear to be closed. If the message from the show is to be believed, whatever it is intended to do is already done, and we were too late to stop it. It's clearly a taunt, but based on what we know, it's probably true, and that means, at least as far as this anomaly goes, there's likely no longer any risk of it resurfacing and affecting the Midwest again. The damage is already done. The best we can do is try to catch the next one as it's happening. FOI is written and produced by Kit Curtis. The theme song, A Special Kind of Hell, provided by Beware the Patternmind, whose music is available wherever good music is played. This week's episode, Mr. Twister, was based on a song I wrote in high school that was very bad. If you like this show and want to hear more of it, hold your friends at gunpoint and force them to consume it. Do it. And thank you for listening.